I remember my teacher walked up to me and she handed me an envelope saying, "Oh, Baba, those photos you edited? Here, consider this your reward. I'm gonna be sending you more next week, manager." And she ended up walking away. At this moment, I realized what photos she sent me, but I thought it was purely for class. Until I realized when I opened that envelope, I saw $100 bills lined up to the point where she gave me $1,000. At this moment, I realized I was my teacher's OnlyFans manager. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So today's story all takes place back when I was in high school, and this was my grade 12 year. Now, in grade 12, I was graduating, and I was finishing up school, basically getting ready to get out of there so I wouldn't have to ever go back. I know that most people nowadays, after they graduate high school, they always miss it and want to go back into it, but me personally, it was just never something I enjoyed. But I remember one time in my grade 12 year, it was 2 weeks before graduation, and I had to pass all my classes. So I remember I was trying to pick up any extra work I could do for any of my classes, and when I was walking into my social studies class, I realized that the original teacher that was my social studies teacher ended up leaving. She ended up leaving for the rest of the school year because apparently she got sick during the pandemic that was going on. So when I ended up walking in there, I did not see my original teacher, but what I did see was that another lady ended up coming in behind me, and she looks at me saying, "Oh, is there a reason you're here?" "Oh, yeah, I'm just looking for the teacher. I have to hand in some homework and I just want to make sure I pass for this year." "Oh, well, here, you can hand it over to me. Are you gonna give it to her after?" "Oh, no, sorry. I should probably mention I'm the new social studies teacher for the next 2 weeks while she's away." I remember I looked at her up and down and I realized that this teacher was way too hot to be a social studies teacher. So as I'm looking at her, I kind of just hand over the homework, but at the same time, I was staring at her cherries the entire time I was handing my stuff to her. And she definitely noticed to the point where she looked at me and she asked me a question that I did not expect, where she said, "So, Baba, right?" Yeah, hi, yeah, that's my name. What's up?" "Oh, well, what's up is I was wondering, what do you want to be when you get older? Like after you graduate?" Now, this question, I never know how to answer. To be honest, back then, if you guys told me that I was gonna make videos about all the crazy women in my life, I would probably end up not giving that answer to anyone because that's really weird to say to other girls. But at the same time, I never expected to say that I was gonna be a creator. So what I ended up saying was, I don't know, I might become like a photographer or like maybe an editor. I don't know, something in like the movie, film industry, maybe. At this moment, she looks at me and she says, "Oh, wait, like an editor? Like, what do you mean an editor?" And at that moment, me and her got into a little discussion about how, I know how to use Photoshop, I know how to edit videos and stuff. And at that moment, she looked at me and smiled. But I ended up handing the rest of my stuff in and I walked away. But what ended up happening next, honestly, was kind of mind-blowing. Because the next day when I entered class, I remember I sat down and I pulled out my laptop to start doing notes and work. And when my teacher saw that I brought my laptop to class that I used to use for all my homework, she looked at me and said, "Oh, Baba, I was wondering, after class, can I see you?" Why? What happened?" "Oh, it's about the homework from yesterday, that's all." Now, at that moment, I got so annoyed because I thought I didn't pass. But I'm not gonna lie to you, she ended up teaching the rest of class, and right away, I noticed that every single guy in my classroom kept staring at her and really liked her. Because like I said earlier, she was way too attractive to be a teacher. And in my mind, I was thinking, there's no way this woman is actually our teacher. Like, it just wasn't making sense to me. Anyways, after class came around, and I remember I ended up staying there sitting on my laptop just waiting. And she walks up to my desk and says, "Hey, so yesterday you were telling me that you're like kind of like an editor of some sorts. I was wondering, can you show me some of the work you do on your computer?" At that moment, I ended up showing like her some of the photos I edited back when I was younger and basically like some like Photoshop edits that I did. And she looks at me and says, "Baba, I was wondering, would you like some side work?" "Side work? What do you mean?" "Oh, well, I'm gonna be sending you some photos tonight on your email, and I was wondering if you could maybe just edit them, just make them, pop out more." Yeah, I can do that if you want. "And if you do this, I'll make sure you pass this class." At that moment, instantly, it was an automatic yes. If I didn't actually have to go through social studies and just do some quick editing just to get an A, I was 100% down to do it. So I remember when after school came around and basically I ended up going home. I got inside my car, started driving over back to my house, and when I was in the car, I ended up getting a notification. She ended up sending me 6 photos that were a part of an email, and when I opened one of the photos in my car, I realized that it was the most spiciest photos of all time. Like, no joke, I opened it in my car and I saw it was a photo of her cherries, her peach, her sitting down on the bed, her like with like full-on cleavage out. Like, it was a lot for one student to see. So at this moment, I'm looking at this thinking, wait, was this meant to be sent to me? So I end up sending her an email back while literally I was driving, and I said, did you mean to send this to me? I think you sent this to the wrong person, and if you did, I won't say anything." She ended up emailing me back saying, "Oh, no, these are the photos I want you to edit. Like, can you add a little bit of a censor bar? And can you like, make it like really like the colors like pop out more?" At that moment, I didn't know what to say. I was kind of like shocked in the middle of everything, and I was like, yo, could I get in serious trouble for this. Either way, I ended up going home and I opened up my laptop and I started basically photoshopping those photos she sent me. And if you guys are wondering, I'm not gonna lie, I did take a break in between editing sessions to basically, you know, I guess beat my eggplant, but that's maybe a bit too much information. Going on with the story though, I remember after I finished editing all of them, I ended up sending it all to her back through the same email. And by the way, this was one of the first times I ever sent photos through emails before, and I didn't know how it worked, but let's just say later on in the story, you'll see why it was a really bad idea. But going on, I remember I ended up sending it all back, and I ended up getting an email back of her basically thanking me and that she's gonna send me more over the weekend. So this whole weekend, while I was playing video games, randomly I'd get photos of her, in really spicy photos of her, I should mention, on my email for me to edit. And I remember on Monday, I went back to school and I kind of decided that I wanted to go talk to her to see if this was really a good idea what she was doing, sending me these photos, and why she had these photos in the first place. Was she trying to make her husband jealous? Was she trying to, you know, change her occupation to something else? Like, what was going on? So I remember Monday morning, I ended up walking up to my teacher in my social studies classroom, and I walked up to her and said, "Hey, so I was wondering, those photos you sent me, what were they for?" "Oh, you mean your special homework you edited for me?" At that moment, I realized that there was another kid in the classroom getting actual help for homework that was going on. Then she ended up winking at me, looking down at her desk and pulling out a yellow sticky note, and she wrote down on it, "Meet me after school at the field." Now, at this moment, I was really sketched out. I didn't really know what was going on, and to be honest with you, I was kind of worried about what was going on. But I remember after school came around, and that day when I went up to the field to go meet up with her, I looked at her and I saw her there standing. And when I said to her, "Hey, so what was going on? Like, why, like, do I have to edit these photos? Like, what are these for?" She ended up handing me an envelope. And when I opened this envelope, I realized there were hundreds of dollars in there. Actually, to be exact, it was $1,000 in an envelope. And I was in shock. And I said to her, "Wait, what is this from?" And at that moment, she just winked at me once again and walked away. Honestly, if anyone else saw what was going on there, 100% they thought that there was going to be like some like crazy deal going on. But as I pulled out all the money when I sat down back in my car, I was counting through it and I saw she left a note in there for me saying, "Oh, this was for my OF and thanks for managing it for me." And as I'm sitting in my car reading this note, I realized that I basically became my teacher's OF manager. My mind was blown. And I remember after that, like the next 2 weeks of school, she would always end up giving me envelopes full of cash, to the point where, I'm not gonna lie, I made a lot of money for my last 2 weeks of high school. And all things must come to an end, because I remember what ended up happening next was really bad. Because one day when I was sitting inside my classroom, actually the social studies classroom, I remember I ended up hearing on the announcements, "Baba, can you please come to the office? Thank you." At that moment, everyone in my social studies class just starts looking at me, and my teacher looks at me and starts sweating, worrying for me that something happened. So I ended up standing up and I went to the principal's office. And when I got there, I sat down with him, and basically he ended up turning his monitor towards me. And he said to me, "So Bubba, something came up in the system where apparently these photos were being sent through your school email. What's going on here?" At this moment, I started panicking, because one thing I realized was that we were using my school email between me and that teacher to send the photos through. And I guess the school system kind of like picked up on it. And I had to explain basically how this teacher was like letting me edit her photos and stuff. And honestly, my principal got mad. Like seriously, so mad to the point where he didn't want me to graduate. But at the same time, I was 18. Like it wasn't actually totally illegal what I was doing. In a way, it was kind of like a side job. The only mistake was that I used my school email. But I'm not gonna lie, that same day as well, the principal actually ended up firing the substitute teacher that was there for the next 2 weeks. And yeah, let's just say since that happened, I never edited one of her photos since. But that just goes to show, honestly, there's a lot of money on the internet, and make right choices. That's why I should really be saying, make right choices, guys. Because if you don't, then just fall for more embarrassing stories just like this one. Peace out, guys.